And welcome to our 7:30 News Bulletin live from Bishop Navy Media Center in Area 2, Lilongwe. And today you're with me, Bridget Mwanoka. The top stories. Pope Francis says the Lord's Advent instigates prayer and God's presence in our daily lives. President Chakwera warns against abuse of Bridging Foundation funds meant for projects implementation. Opposition DPP challenges government to change the country's debt managing strategy. And news from elsewhere, election materials destroyed in Nigeria as an attack. These are some of the stories making headlines. Do stay with us. The Holy Father, Pope Francis, has called on Catholic faithful to be awake from slumber and to always be aware of the presence of God and to welcome Him in their daily lives on the first Sunday of Advent. Welcoming pilgrims in St. Peter's Square, the Holy Father offered his customary reflections and catechesis before leading the recitation of the Angelus prayer. He reminded them that the Lord is coming to be with those who believe in Him. We have a Vatican News Agency report being read by Jacqueline Saidi.
Marking the foundation of the Catholic faithful's hope, the fact that everyone should give consolation even in the most difficult times, the Pope pointed out that the Lord always visits us in our lives, makes Himself close, and will return at the end of time to welcome us in His embrace. But he asked those who believe in Him to naturally ask themselves how the Lord will come to visit and how the faithful will recognize and welcome Him. The first question the Pope asked requires us to reflect more deeply, as we often hear the Lord is present in our daily lives, accompanying us in our journey. This reality may get lost at times, he observed, as we become distracted by the many concrete aspects of our daily lives, or perhaps we only look for spectacular and miraculous signs of the Lord's presence. The Holy Father pointed out how Jesus reminds his listeners that God will come when we least expect it and in our normal everyday lives, as in the days of Noah. The Pope underscored that God conceals Himself in the most common and ordinary situations in our lives, and we need to be constantly aware of this reality, not awaiting extraordinary events.
Malawi has signed a funding and governance agreement (FGA) with Bridging Foundation worth about $6.8 billion, which is equivalent to 7 trillion Malawi kwacha, earlier today at State House in Lilongwe, aimed at implementing various projects in the healthy, education, gender, works and energy sector. According to the Minister of Finance and Economic Affairs, Sosten Kwengwe, after signing the agreement with the President of Bridging Foundation, Professor Tako Muhammadu, the agreement will support the implementation of the first phase of 7 projects in the country. More details in this report being read by Alina Fipiri.
President of the Republic of Malawi, Dr. Lazarus Maikathi Chakwera, expressed joy for the signing of the agreement and said he is optimistic that these projects will generate revenue for Malawi's economic growth. The Malawi president also said that what people described as empty speeches should now be embraced, for they are actually paying off, realizing that Bridging Foundation saw and believed in those visions. President Chakwera then urged various ministries to implement these projects, to work with integrity, hence has warned those to be found implicated into the malpractice of misusing the funds for personal gains to be dealt with greatly.
No money will leave Malawi in the form of repatriation of earnings or debt repayment as a result of this cooperation. And I expect the relevant ministries to push all cylinders on the implementation. And if anyone tries to look for ways of personally benefiting from these projects through corrupt means, I'll deal with them.
In his remarks, the Minister of Finance and Economic Affairs, Sostin Gwengwe, said that they will take full responsibility of monitoring how funds will be used to avoid mismanagement issues.
As the overall coordinating policy holder for all these kind of projects, we do make sure that the implementation is to the letter. You know that we'll be implementing this together with Bridging Foundation, and the accounts that they're going to be operating will be opened jointly with Bridging Foundation, and we hope that there will not be any other thing that will be contrary to what is laid down as procedure for implementing these projects.
President for Bridging Foundation, Professor Tanko, said the overall goal of this partnership is to support developing countries like Malawi to eliminate poverty.
Really interested in supporting the resolution of the poverty and where it is. Then the second goal is to have, let's say, economic point of view, to have Western companies. We primarily work with, evidently, local EPC subcontractors, evidently.
In his remarks, Executive Secretary of Regional Universities Forum for Capacity Building in Agriculture Forum, Dr. Patrick Okori, said it is crucial for government to strengthen the human resource capacity, put in place well-defined mechanisms, and leave no one behind in order to fully achieve the goal of these projects. Bridging Foundation is a Belgium-based philanthropy organization that is aimed to contribute to the economic, social and industrial development of emerging countries by funding their projects and programs. Reporting for Luntha News, this is Alina Fiperi.
Opposition Democratic Progressive Party (DPP) has expressed concern over the country's debt burden, which now hovers around 7.3 trillion Malawi kwacha. In his remarks earlier today in Parliament, in his comment on performance of the budget for the 2022-2023 financial year in the first 6 months, DPP spokesperson on finance Rafu Juma indicated that about 1 trillion Malawi kwacha debt has accumulated in the past 6 months, describing this as the fastest pace of debt accumulation. Juma has since asked the Minister of Finance to check debt managing strategies, saying he feels the current measures lack action. Tandiwe Mzumara with more.
Parliament resumed sitting in Lilongwe on Monday with comments on the revised 2.85 trillion budget presented by Finance Minister Sostin Gwengwe last Friday. First on the floor was Raf Juma, spokesperson on finance for opposition Democratic Progressive Party (DPP), who started by faulting the whole budget, saying it lacks detailing on some key issues, especially on developmental budget of the country. He added by faulting the Tonse administration, saying that prices of goods have immensely increased since they were ushered into government, which is bad for the country. Juma went further to express concern with the country's debt burden, challenging government to check the current managing strategies, which he feels lack action.
All the grants that we are getting, or indeed all the donations that we are getting from the government partner, use them to repay some of these debts, so that we now ease a little bit on interest payment and use that money for budgeting.
Taking the stage, Chairperson for the Budget and Finance Committee of Parliament, Gladys Ganda MP, among other things, questioned as to why there is an increase in the votes for OPC and state residences amid austerity measures.
I've noticed that almost all the other votes, most of the votes have been adjusted downwards to make sure that we live within the budget itself. But these two votes have increased, apart from the other votes that have increased. But those two votes have been increased to some levels. So we want at least some explanation so that we should know what really those funds will do in the state residences and office of the President and Cabinet.
Among other things, Minister of Finance Sostin Gwengo on Friday announced the lifting of the ban on conferences outside duty station, which government imposed on ministries, departments and agencies, saying the move has been done to promote the tourism industry, which is recovering from effects brought by COVID-19. For Luntha News in Lilongwe, this is Tandiwe Mzumara.
The Center for Democracy and Economic Development Initiatives, CDED, has warned the Minister of Homeland Security, Jeannie Sendeza, and the Deputy Inspector General of Police responsible for operations, that's Caspar Jalila, to desist from using sentiments that may culminate into state-sponsored xenophobic attacks on refugees and asylum seekers in the country. According to CDED Executive Director Sylvester Namiwa, government should spend the whole exercise pending an all-inclusive stakeholders meeting where all the contentious issues shall be discussed and ironed. Charlie Dejiranga has more.
Briefing on November 24, 2022 in Lilongwe, Minister of Homeland Security Jeannie Sendeza said the deadline for relocation of refugees and asylum seekers to Dzaleka camp in Doha remains November 13, 2022 for those living in rural areas and February 1, 2023 for urban dwellers. According to a police internal memo dated November 25, 2022, Deputy Inspector General of Police responsible for operations, Caspar Jalila, instructed police to start spotting or identifying refugees living outside Dzaleka camp in preparation for their relocation after November 13, 2022. Namiwa said such an order is highly insensitive and ill-timed owing to the conduct of the bad apples that seem to have hijacked the police service. According to Namiwa, this is a blank check to these bad apples to start looting and plundering innocent foreign nationals' property in the name of carrying out such an order on one hand, while some criminal elements outside the service may also take advantage of the same to victimize innocent people.
With the careless and the highly insensitive remarks from the authorities, especially the Deputy Inspector General of Police, Caspar Jalila, because we think the police that has been hijacked by some bad apples, they will take that as a blank check to loot and plunder property of innocent refugees and asylum seekers. On the other hand, there are some criminal minds that are civilians. They also take advantage of the same pronouncements to victimize innocent refugees and asylum seekers. We are worried with the timing because we think this decision has been made at a time when Malawi is facing a number of challenges. At the same time, the approach, we don't find it to be human rights responsive.
Namiwa further reminded the government that refugees and asylum seekers are human beings, hence have basic human rights and ought to be treated with dignity. Efforts to speak to officials from the Ministry of Homeland Security was not successful as their phones went unanswered. Reporting for Luntha Television News in Lilongwe, this is Charity Chilanga.
You're still watching our 7:30 News Bulletin, but before we proceed, let's look at our top stories.
Pope Francis says the Lord's Advent instigates prayer and God's presence in our daily lives. President Chakwera warns against abuse of Bridging Foundation funds meant for projects implementation. Opposition DPP challenges government to change the country's debt managing strategy. And news from elsewhere, election materials destroyed in Nigeria as an attack.
Moving forward as a way of increasing access to mobile network among people in rural areas, Malawi Communications Regulatory Authority (MACRA) has said they are at an advanced stage on the communication broadband operator project. Speaking at a conference which was held in Lilongwe today, acting head of Universal Fund at MACRA, Kumbo Kasambala, said through the project they will license one per district to complement roles of mobile network operators. Hope Gambeda has the details.
According to Kasambala, Community Broadband Operators Project will help to bridge mobile and internet connectivity gap to make sure that everyone in Malawi accesses digital platforms. He also said as of now they are trying to come up with a framework that is going to help the community broadband operators on how they are going to roll up their businesses. He added that top mobile network providers consider rural areas as non-profit areas, hence they need to empower rural people with infrastructure to come up with digital skills to open up doors in digital consultation.
We have a network infrastructure, more or less like a guideline that will give them an impetus or more what I can call some specifics for them to be able to use to come up with networks in rural areas. Who benefits from this is the rural masses. Why are they the key beneficiaries? There are areas which are not profitable for Airtel, TNM, and all the big players to go now. But if you empower the people living there to come up with infrastructure, give them digital skills so that they can put up their own infrastructure, it opens up doors to digital platforms as well as digital services.
The project will also help people from rural areas not to travel long distances to access government services, access to market information, among others. The conference attracted a lot of network service providers like Telecom Networks Malawi, TNM, Skyband Limited, among others. The study on accessibility of internet, broadcasting, and postal services, which was conducted in 2019, shows that 2 million people were left out in the country completely in the connectivity to internet. For Luntha Television News in Lilongwe, this is Hope Kambeda.
Springdale College UK and Girl University, in collaboration with Destiny College of Leadership in Balaka, has urged students graduating in various universities in the country to be innovative in line with the vision of Sustainable Development Goals and Malawi 2063 Agenda. Director of Destiny Leadership of college in Malawi, Bishop Andrew Mankanamba, made the appeal over the weekend where he called on graduates to give solutions to socio-economic challenges of the country if the country is to fulfill the Malawi 2063 agenda. Andrew Nandolo compiled a report being read by Rashida Matandika.
Bishop Mankanamba said Destiny College does not just give degrees to graduates, but impart knowledge and skills for the benefit of the whole country. He said the university is doing Christian missionary in its admission of students for holistic benefit of all Malawians.
What we expect in them, number one, is not only for them to show their certificates where they're going, but we have given them all the knowledge they want. Because what we normally do, we do 50% theory and 50% is practical. Each graduate you have seen today has a project that they have initiated in line with Sustainable Development Goals, all the 17 goals. Right now we have also migrated and we are moving to 2065 agenda, the 2063 agenda. That's why our students, they are going through what we call applied technologies, where they are doing value additions, innovations, and a lot of technologies as well. So that's what we are doing.
Commenting on the Sustainable Development Goals, Regional Director for International Christian Youth Africa, Dr. Joe Bonga, who is Kenyan, said time has come for African people to find solutions to their challenges by addressing issues of climate change and others.
I believe that it is time for Africans to create their own destinies, and we cannot create our own destinies if we do not understand our context. And even if we understand our context, we also need to understand where we want to take our continent into. So one of the biggest achievements is that we are part of the SDGs campaign, the Global Sustainable Development Campaign by the United Nations. And what we're doing is we're making sure that all our learnings are aligned to the SDG. So every learner that comes must choose one of the sustainable development goals, whether it is poverty, hunger, gender, or climate action. We want to see them develop innovative, implementable, and scalable ideas that can be transferred from one area to another area to influence and impact the whole continent of Africa.
One of the graduates, Loreen Kathe Mendulo, who spoke on behalf of other students, said the program she was studying has already benefited her, as well as her communities in Blantyre, because she is implementing a project of teaching the community in making Bayer fertilizer.
It has helped the people around the area which I stay. I stay in BCA Hill, but it has brought a very big impact by teaching them how to make this Bayer fertilizer. So as a result, they'll be able to apply this fertilizer and they'll yield a lot of maize because of this fertilizer is so effective.
Since its opening in 2018, Destiny College has seen many people graduating, and the college is planning to start constructing Baraka campus structures in 3 years' time.
Rashida Matandika reading that report, compiled by Andrew Nandolo. In entertainment news, for the first time in years, the annual Matafali Memorial Concert received a special blessing from heaven as it did not rain. The crowd-pulling event has annually been beset by heavy downpours, which affected the turnout, performances, and power systems at its traditional venue, Mankokwe Ground, in Isingano Village, Chileka in Blantyre, the home of fallen reggae star Evans Matafali. More in this report by Hilbert Katanda.
Matafali's 20 years memorial show on Sunday proved a deviation from what has been the norm. The patrons enjoyed beautiful sunlight and danced on solid ground and not in the mud. Kameza roundabout was heavily congested with trucks, minibuses, and other smaller vehicles as they ferried patrons to the concert at Gadaga Ground at Sigano Village in Chileka. It is a day they celebrate the life of the fallen reggae icon and an influential figure in Rastafarianism in Malawi. Along the front side of the fence were pavilions where sachet liquor, chimera, and marijuana were being sold. Besides this were two men who were painting patrons in the Rasta colors of red, green, and yellow at the fee of 100 kwacha. A struggle through the jam-packed dusty grounds led on to have a vintage point of an event, which was graced by leader of opposition in parliament, Kondwani Nkrumah. Speaking at the event, Nkrumah hailed Matafali and others such as Musamude and Gift Fumulani, who died later, for their immense contribution towards the development of music in Malawi. He urged government to consider opening a music college in Chileka in honor of the music icons like Matafali and others.
To start doing things in a professional way now. If you go to other countries, you find that there are music colleges. South Africa, Zimbabwe, Zambia, they have good music colleges where people go and enroll to practice professional music. But we don't have it in here. So it's very important that we, as Malawi, have that college, and that's why I've called upon the government to make sure that we have this college here in Chileka.
In an interview, the band leader, Anthony Magundeta, said the band lives by the principles of the late Matafali. The headliners, the Black Missionaries Band, founded by Evison Matafali, gave their usual electric performance. Also performing at the concert was Moda Fumulani, who paid homage to his late brother, Gift Fumulani, by performing some of his popular songs. Other artists include Gibo Piasoni, Fredokis, Queen Fire, and Limbani Due. Matafali, the founder of Reggae Fanatics Black Missionaries Band, was born on 20.
And in sports, Ghana produced a stunning performance to win against South Korea in front of a vibrant crowd at Education City Stadium in Qatar. A 10-minute spell by the Black Stars in the first half presented them with a 2-0 lead before the break, but two stunning headers in 3 minutes from Jong Kim-sang leveled the game after 61 minutes. Ajax forward Muhammad Kudus, who had headed in Jonathan Ayew's cross in the first half, added a final twist when he thumped in a third for Ghana to break South Korea's hearts. And finally, in international news, unknown assailants have razed the offices of the National Electoral Commission in Nigeria in the easy local government areas in the capital city. Presidential vote INEC National has said this might affect it because most of the materials are damaged. He said these include 340 ballot boxes, 130 voting cables, 14 electrical power generators, large water storage tank, assorted office furniture, and many more. That will be all from me, but before we go, let's look at our top stories. Pope Francis says the Lord's Advent instigates prayer and God's presence in our daily lives. President Chakwera warns against abuse of Bridging Foundation funds meant for projects implementation. Opposition DPP challenges government to change the country's debt managing strategy. And news from elsewhere, election materials destroyed in Nigeria arson attack. Thank you for choosing Luntha Television. This has been Bridget Manoka. Stay blessed.